Whoever becomes leader is going to have an alternative economic strategy that holds water, that is credible, that people can believe in. They'll say, yes, we understand. Whether it's rebalancing how much you take from tax as opposed to spending cuts, what spending cuts you would allow. So when you begin to think about how you would put forward a credible economic strategy, what would it consist of?
Well, first of all, you have to rebalance how you're raising the money as between public sector cuts and taxation. Currently, the Tory ratio is 80-20. Lamont, when he had a big cuts budget, was 50-50. So I would say 50-50. I say it like that because if you say, oh, let's take more from taxation, people say you're a left-winger, so I like to cite Norman Lamont. So I'd have it 50-50. Because public sector cuts, the problem with public sector cuts is you're taking demand out of the economy. And as Obama and his Treasury Secretary pointed out, if all the European economies all at the same time take that demand out, the danger is a kind of death spiral of deflation. As far as taxation, I would make the 50% tax rate permanent. I'd bring it down to 100,000. There's a kind of hysteria about tax in this country. Actually, even if you bring the 50% rate down to people earning 100,000, the number of people you're affecting, it's not double figures.
But it also doesn't bring in all that much. I mean, it may be a reasonable thing to do, but nevertheless, it's going to take more than that.
If you let me finish, you'd bring the 50% rate down to 100,000. You would look at capital gains. I mean, the Tory press would squeal. They squealed at what little Osborne did about capital gains, but you could make some of the money up out of that. I'd also have a financial transactions tax, and I'd also look at doubling the banking tax. If you double the banking tax, you make about 8 billion. And I'd also look at a wealth tax. You have to be careful though with taxation, as you would know, because you have to model it very carefully to see there are no unforeseen effects.
What kind of wealth tax?
Well, I think there was something to be said for Vince Cable's mansions tax, although, people that live in nice houses in London might object to it. I think there's something said for a mansions tax, which would have the side effect of bearing down on the housing bubble. It'd stop people actually buying and selling houses for gain. But I think you would be looking at assets more than income.
Now, you were against Iraq right from the beginning. You want us to get out of Afghanistan. Do you think we can just pull out just like that tomorrow, off, away? God.
No, I don't think we can pull out just like that. But we have to have a timetable for withdrawal, not least because the Americans will withdraw before we do, because public opinion, if you read the US press, public opinion is moving inexorably against the Afghanistan entanglement, quite correctly, because no Western countries won a war occupation in Afghanistan for 2 centuries. I think that, because of the atomised and tribalised nature of Afghanistan society and the fact that the army and the police are such a state, you probably need some sort of military presence there, but it should be a UN presence, hopefully led by Islamic forces. I have every confidence in the UN. I think the Labour Party should start having confidence in the UN again, rather than thinking the way forward is to act as Robin to America's Batman.
You've been one of the very powerful opponents of the anti-terror legislation and civil liberties infringements. How do you explain how Labour got itself into being the most reactionary, most repressive government, and Cameron now being the man for freedom?
Well, it's very regrettable that it's now a Tory-led coalition that's ending the detention of children and doing away with compulsory ID cards and so on. I think it was a kind of phony populism. The party under New Labour was being led so far to the right, they kind of felt they had to throw a bone to some of their core supporters. And this kind of, we're going to bang people up for 90 days and that'll make you safe. It was a phony and I think slightly disreputable populism that led us into that. And also the fact that we were led by polls. We didn't talk to our members, we didn't talk to councillors, we didn't offer leadership, we just looked at the polls. The polls said, yes, bang up Muslim boys with rucksacks for 90 days without trial. And we said, yes, we'll do that.
On torture and our complicity in some pretty unpleasant stuff that's come to light. Do you think that David Miliband is implicated in that now by his apparent unwillingness to bring this out into public?
No one knows whether David Miliband is implicated in it, but what we do know is the Tories set up an inquiry into torture. Now, great respect for some Tories, but they're not doing this out of altruism. They're doing it because they're relying on the fact, or they believe that it will come up with facts that are deeply embarrassing to us as the past government. And they must be gambling as well that the leader that we select will be tarnished.
Do you fear that that's the case and that if he is selected, it could all blow up and be very disadvantageous to Labour?
Well, as I say, the only reason the Tories are having this inquiry, they think the conclusion will be disadvantageous to us. And the question is not whether we tortured people or whether David Miliband tortured people. The question is, were we complicit, both in torture and an extraordinary rendition for torture?
And what's your suspicion?
I'm not a person that's given suspicion. I look at the facts, and the facts will come clear, hopefully with the Tory inquiry, but maybe even before that.
Now, when you look back over Labour's 13 years, it left a country slightly less fair, more unequal than it was before. It tried hard, but not hard enough. How do you account for that? What could be done in a future Labour government to make sure that we really do get more social justice?
Partly, you have to have a Labour government where the leader is prepared to offer leadership on issues. And you have to have a Labour government where the leader is not so obsessed with keeping taxation, the basic rate taxation, low at all costs. And you have to have a Labour government which is not as in thrall to bankers and financiers as we were.
At Hustings and elsewhere, you've come under attack for sending your child to a private school, often actually from people on the left who are your natural supporters. How do you respond to that?
The people that have attacked me about it, people that don't like me. I mean, and people that don't like me, if it wasn't that, it would be something else.
Well, some of them are on the left and are disappointed.
I didn't say that they were in the Labour Party, I said they don't like me. And if it wasn't that, it was something else. I mean, it's interesting in a way that the only thing people can find to throw at me is something which happened a decade ago. What can you do? If it wasn't that, Polly, you know, being a woman in public life isn't easy, and if it wasn't that, it would be something else. And the curious thing is, the thing people go after women in public life about is their shoes, their families, and their families. You have to live with it.
But isn't this slightly more political than just being a family matter or a shoes matter?
It's interesting that the basis on which people go after women politicians tend to be that sort of issue. It's curious. No one is interested in where the Miliband's children go to school, quite correctly. No one is interested about where they went to school, quite correctly. But with a woman, the family territory, it's open season on it. It's one of those things.
I'm not quite sure it's true, because all of the candidates, interestingly, have been very eager to talk, except Ed Balls, who's the only one who came from a private school himself, have been eager to talk about their backgrounds and identity politics, if you like, and saying, this is who I am, this is the school I went to a state school,
well,
my children go to state schools.
The reason they're doing that is have a go at me. The reason they're dealing in identity politics at all is it's something I brought into the race. I mean, the very first hustings I did was a New Statesman hustings, and I talked a little bit about my background and got a very good response from the audience, and going forward, my colleagues have increasingly brought their identity into it.
You're often reported as being not a very popular person in Parliament, and perhaps that's because you're on the left. Women on the left, whether it's Mo Mowlam, Claire Short, always had a tough time. But perhaps it's also because you're something of a loner. You haven't really got a sort of coterie around you of like-minded people. What do you feel about your reputation in Parliament?
I don't think I'm a loner. What I am is someone that's never been part of the sort of Westminster Dining Club. I mean, but I've got a circle of friends that I've had for 20 years who've been a tremendous support to me. I've been a tremendous support in the leadership campaign. Just because I go to the right dinner party doesn't mean to say I'm a loner, Polly.
Now, you've been very funny about the other candidates, call them geeks in suits.
I didn't, actually.
Oh, you didn't?
No.
Who said geeks in suits?
Lorna Kunisberg said to me, don't you think they're geeks in suits? And I was tired and I said, well, if you say so, Laura. And then that became the headline. That's how journalism works.
But you do think you're different to them. You think you stand out. You think you have different experience. You think you have different views.
I don't think I'm different. I'm clearly different. My politics are different. I think they're great, the other four candidates, but they're continuity candidates. I'm the only candidate who's not a continuity candidate. My background is very different. My father wasn't a professor. My parents both left school at 14.
Which of them do you think is the closest to you in terms of which is the most left-wing? Probably of the two Eds, which one do you think? You've sat in through 30 hustings, listening to their pitch. Which of them gets closest to you, do you think?
I wouldn't want to say.
Really? Because each of them are pitching towards the left.
I wouldn't want to say. This will all come out in the wash.
But you must have a view. You've sat and listened to them. You must think, I agree with that, don't agree with that.
I think that all of them are very nice. Nice suits, nice red ties. nice haircuts, all very nice.
So you don't mind which of them wins? It doesn't make any difference to you. If it's not going to be you, you don't mind. You're indifferent, are you, as to which of the
No, I'm a
others?
party member. You know, I've been in the party all my life. I'm not in the party to advance my career. I've been in the party at every level as a grassroots activist all my life. And it does matter to me who the leader of the party is. And one of the reasons I'm running is to make sure I'm the leader and the party gets taken in the right direction. I'm in this, as my friends tell me all the time, to remind me I'm in it to win it.
Do you need reminding?
Oh, it's hard to take. I mean, David Miliband has £400,000 in cold cash, and he has a team of about 90. The last time I looked in my account, I had £1,700, and I have 2.5 volunteers. You do get very, very tired when you're facing those sorts of odds. But I'm lucky to have the sorts of friends and family who say, no, we're in this to win this.
But what does his money buy? Can you really? Is this a buyable election? Sure. After all, it's party members voting.
Sure. As it happens, he has acquired, seems to have acquired, a list of all the telephone numbers of all party members. And so part of what the team he's paying for is doing is phoning round party members all over the country. It's also the case that in this election, if you want to mail party members, you have to pay for it. The party will do it for it, but you have to pay for it, and it costs at least 40 grand and as much as 70 grand. He's already had a mail out. No one else can afford to have a mail out, or possibly one, but not two. So he's got the money to have people to phone round. He's got the money to do the mail outs. He's got the money to get the leaflets through, and he's got the money to roll around even in between the official hustings and make all these unofficial visits. There's no doubt that money is making a huge difference in the election. He declared at the end of June £180,000. I have 1,700. Even you, Polly, wouldn't say that David Miliband's politics are 10 times more popular than mine in the Labour Party. So there is something unfortunate about even the appearance that someone is buying the election.
Are these rules Labour should change? It seems extraordinary that Labour, within its own party election, should have such injustice built into it. Shouldn't there be a low cap on what anybody can spend?
There is a cap, but some expenditure is uncapped, like what you pay for staff. So David is able to have this huge team, and the expenditure isn't capped.
As leader, would you change it and say, right, let's not have money enter into this, this is a party matter?
As a party member, I think that we need a system for the leadership, much like our system when you're running at a constituency level, which doesn't allow people to buy elections, yeah.
Diane, thank you very much indeed.